Check of the runner at second. Pitch by Holtz. Pitch line in the air towards center field, towards left center field. That ball's gonna get down. Dylan Dreiling has done it. The comeback is complete. Blake Burke scores from second, and Tennessee walks it off. 4 runs in the bottom of the ninth. This is a team you just can't count out. 4th run batted into the ball game. And Tennessee, with 4 in the bottom of the ninth, rises up to take down Florida State. It's 4 runs for the Big Orange. On 5 hits, 2 men left. The run batted in for Dylan Dreiling is his 67th on the season, and none bigger. Tennessee 12, Florida State 11. The Volunteers say hello win column for the 56th time. This one belongs to the Big Orange, and this is Tennessee baseball.
Since 2003, this is the Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Presented by Pipe Wrench, and by Junk Be Gone, and by the Garza Law Firm.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
Pack your bags, Ma. I think we have a new all-time great call in Tennessee radio history. John Wilkerson there from Omaha. We appreciate you joining us today for the Sports Source here in the Junk Be Gone studios on Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all of you out there, including my own who's watching. We are going to be doing we're going to have some basketball, some football a little later. Obviously a lot of baseball today. And joining us now from Omaha, kind enough to take a little time out of his pregame day, is John Wilkerson, the man you just heard on that call. John, congratulations on one heck of a win last night.
Boy, that was sure something Friday night. It was remarkable. You want to guard against hyperbole, but that might have been the biggest win in the history of the program.
Absolutely, and I said last night, my days are all running together. I wanted to say...
Same here.
Yeah, I bet. Well, tell me this. I mean, that was a great call. Tremendous call. No broadcaster. You love hearing it, but you have to do the no. But I guarantee you there were people falling out of their chairs loving that as they heard it the other day. Talk to me, I mean, with the stakes, you're already in Omaha. It's, you know how damaging it is to lose that first game. What the stakes, what they were, the unbelievable comeback part of it, where does that rank in terms of your all-time Vol calls?
I think it moves to the top of the list because, as you mentioned, when you look at what was on the line and when you see where they were, I mean, this is just the second time Tennessee's opened with a win in the College World Series. And then if you're looking for a tiebreaker, somebody hitting for the cycle would probably be a pretty nice one, just the second ever in Omaha. So I do think that while, again, you can point to other historic moments, huge instances for Tennessee baseball, I do believe this is the new #1.
Well, and you just mentioned Christian Moore. Tell me a little bit about, I mean, hitting for the cycle just the second time ever, but the year he's had and certainly the way he's played of late.
Well, you actually can go back to the last month of last year because I don't think Tennessee makes it to the NCAA tournament and finishes as strongly as it did in the SEC after their 5-10 start in 2023, if not for Christian Moore really coming to life. I mean, he was the first ball to be a most outstanding player in a road regional. He did that when Tennessee went to Clemson and won. So I do think you've seen him lift his game going back to last year. And then after a Team USA experience last summer, I think he's just continued to grow. You look at the progress that he's made, and especially dealing with breaking pitches, I think he's just lived up to being exactly what the Vols had hoped he would grow into, and that is a legendary type player that's right in there with Todd Helton and Chris Burke. His numbers speak for themselves. And, oh, by the way, his home run the other night was his 60th. In his Tennessee career. No Vol had hit more than 40 before he arrived. So he just continues to do his own version of the record book as he gets deeper into his third year at Tennessee.
Tremendous. Let's talk about the one, I guess if you're a Florida State fan, it would be the controversial moment. If you're a Tennessee fan, what, they got it right. The check swing on Blake Burke. When they showed the replay, when I first watched it live, I thought, okay, he went around. I saw the replay, and it's like, no, I think he got it. What was your initial thought in the broadcast booth, admittedly through orange-colored glasses? What was your take?
Well, hold your breath, because anytime it comes down to a 50-50 call, it can go either way. You don't normally see a game end. I mean, that's the last out. That's the third strike. And so a lot of times, I don't know if it's something that's a conscious decision by umpires. You just don't see. You do see some, but you don't see many ring-ups in that regard when they appeal to a base. But, yeah, I was holding my breath just like everybody else, because I thought he could easily have been punched out. You go back and you look at the rewind and the replays, sure, you could still see it's a 50-50 call, and thankfully from Tennessee's perspective, it was ball 3.
In terms of celebrating that win on Friday night, and of course they'll be there today, Vol Nation traveling to Omaha. You've been out there many times now under Rod Delmonico, and now it's becoming a habit with Tony Vitello. Have you seen a change in the Vol fans when they go out there? I'm sure the first time it was like, wow, it's this new experience. Now it's kind of old hat. But in terms of how many people are out there for Tennessee, and then is there now developing a little bit of, we know why we're here?
I do think that it's become part of the pattern, because you saw it starting first at the SEC tournament down in Hoover. It would be that as the Vols got deeper into the week, more and more orange and white would show up in the stands. That presence is much earlier now. You also take a look at this trip to Omaha. I think it's the best that it's been from the get-go, because you take a look at, for instance, there's a local establishment that keeps track of how many fan bases have taken this many shots. It's a charitable outreach as well as a great moneymaker for them. Tennessee's leading the competition. So, I mean, the Volunteers have come out in force. There was a ton of orange and white in the stands ready to go from against Florida State. And what was really awesome was after the incredible victory is how many fans just kind of worked their way down to the third base dugout. They just wanted to be closer to the team after such a huge victory. So, yes, the orange and white has been strong from the start, and I imagine more in the stands tonight.
Well, that was a game to remember and a call to remember. Broadcasters all look forward to having something like that. Congratulations on getting that one, John. And thanks again for being with us today. We're going to sit here and talk a little bit about the North Carolina game that's coming up tonight. But good luck to you and the Vols. And once again, thanks for taking time out and joining us. I do appreciate it personally.
Absolutely, John. Always appreciate the chance. Thank you very much.
All right, very good. And we want to tell you before we start the rest of this segment that the rest of this segment is brought to you by the Garza Law Firm. And no one in East Tennessee is more happy with Vols baseball success than Marcos Garza and his team at the Garza Law Firm. Huge supporters of Tony Vitello's program. Just one way they're involved in our community. And when you need legal help, I suggest you call them, because if there's anybody that has a winning track record like Tennessee baseball and Tony Vitello right now, it's the Garza Law Firm. All right, let's introduce the rest of the panel as I take off the ear contraption here because it annoys me. Chuck Cavaleros is right there. Vince Ferrara right here. Will West, Bob Hodge. Thanks to all of you. It's been a complicated morning. I've been shouting and screaming and throwing things, so I appreciate you all remaining calm and doing your business.
But you showed a good arm.
I did. That's pretty good. Tony Vitello would be impressed. Let me ask you guys. Vince, I'll start with you. That victory on Friday, I said last night, that victory on Friday, where's it ranked for you in terms of the ones you've seen Tennessee win? That's with the stakes involved and everything else. It's got to be top 2, top 3, number 1.
Yeah, I'd say at the top. And look, if John thinks it's at the top, I think it's at the top. There's no doubt about it. And here's the thing is you don't often win when you lose that first game.
Right.
And this is about winning a national championship with the number 1 national seed. And Tennessee had only won, I believe, one first game before. Like even last year they got a game, but they had lost before that. Virginia in 2021 lost your opener. It is so difficult. And for this team to kind of break through and get that first game, it was massive. And if you can get the second one, that takes you to another level. We'll talk about that level.
Yeah, we'll preview the North Carolina game coming up. Thoughts on that victory the other night? Thoughts on John's call? I was bragging on it, but that was a great call.
It was unbelievable. It really was. I mean, I know that Tyler Ivan shared it on Twitter.
Right.
And, like, within a couple of hours, it had 80,000 views. Like, I mean, it's just wild. How many people, where is the Wilkerson call? And he did not disappoint with that. I thought it was incredible. On the game, it's unreal when you make that many mistakes to survive it. When you drop a double play ball that ends up leading to multiple runs scored in an inning and you falling behind like that. But that's kind of this team, right? They're just never counting them out ever. And since Tony Vitello's been here, That's a little of what you get. I do think they got a little help from the third base.
The check swing, you thought he went?
So if you look at the NCAA rulebook, and like every other level of baseball in your entire life you've ever seen, does the wrist break? The NCAA rulebook says if the bat goes past the inside hip. And the bat was 2-3 inches past the inside hip. But I don't know if they call it like that. Like everything that's a foul in basketball isn't. That's not what they call it. Travel
strike zones are different.
Yes, absolutely. So I mean, FSU fans were complaining, but I do think sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, and Tennessee was both.
If you flip that and their situations reversed, Tennessee fans would be screaming that the Florida State guy had struck out. That's just the way it is.
It's like John said, especially to end the game that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it really has to be over the top almost to call it. And it's Section 39.
I bet you would be saying
in the
that
rule.
different if that was Florida State that was at bat.
It's Section 39, and in the rule book, it says the batter is in jeopardy of a strike being called if he initiates a swing. And like you're saying, if the barrel of the bat passes the front hip, then it can be called a strike.
Yeah, they really don't call it that way because guys are so far back in the batter's box that doesn't get you to the past the plate. So they're really calling in on the plate, but you just want it to be consistent.
But John, the game I thought ranked with some of the biggest comebacks in UT sports history, not just baseball. And the call by John Wilkerson, I think it even goes outside UT sports to Mike Keith and the Music City Miracle and how iconic it was and how people were sharing it. And how you get chill bumps even now.
The Mike Keith call I remember was the pack your bags, Ma, we're going to Omaha. The team of destinies headed for the field of dreams.
Just to add to how big it was in UT athletics history, that is so rare in the Men's College World Series. In teams that had ninth inning leads in the last 185 Men's College World Series games, 176-9. That's just the lead going to the ninth, much less a 3-run lead. You just don't see it.
This is a little bit different World Series, though. You've had 3 games that were the first 3 games were all one. Well, all 4 of the games were 1-run games. Right. The first 3 were walk-off runs.
Yeah.
And the last one was a home run saving, home run robbing catch, or that would have been a lead change in the ninth.
Right.
We'll talk about predicting whether Tennessee's going to make the final series. That'll be later in the show. It's going to be hard to predict anybody to make that series when you look at how evenly matched this field appears to be. Bob, your thoughts on all of it?
My thoughts on all of it, one, I thought he swung. I don't watch a ton of baseball, but I thought, ooh.
Yeah, that's kind of my feeling too.
It was literally that right down and then right back up. But I think if Tennessee is going to win the whole thing, I kind of think you saw a little bit about how they're going to do it. I don't think their pitching is great. I think their fielding is better than what that game showed. But I think you're going to get up there and you're just going to have to wait out the hits and the hits and the hits. And I guess I went through 3 or 4 different, it's over. No, it's not. Yeah, it's over. And the check swing was the last one of those where immediately you come from down and up. So I think that's kind of the pattern that they're going to win by, is they're going to have to out-hit everybody.
They showed why they're better. They showed why they're better than the 2022 team. They're more complete in that how they worked counts in that ninth inning. 3 2 counts worked.
Right.
And Burke was part of that. The sac fly,
Right.
Burke's hit more,
Right.
and Cannon Peebles pinch hitting and drawing a walk when he was showing bunt, and it messed up the pitcher. So this is more than just a home run hitting team. They really go to all fields and really work counts.
And that's what they need to be.
That's what I was going to say. They have been better at small ball than I thought they were going to be with the number of home runs they had hit during the regular season. They've been fantastic at it.
That was going to be a topic I was going to bring up today, and I thought, let's just talk about the victory. But that was, you hit 2 home runs yesterday, or Friday, I keep doing it. 2 home runs Friday, but during the regular season at Lindsey Nelson Stadium, you averaged almost 3 home runs a game. In past trips to Omaha, that's just a much deeper field than what you play here. You go back to the opening at Globe Life Stadium when they opened out at Arlington. Yeah, that's a longer ballpark. They didn't hit as many home runs there. So I thought, is this something that's going to affect it? And instead, they came through with 12 runs on just 2 home runs. That does talk about the small
Watching
ball.
it compare it to a football game, okay, can a team put together a 12-play drive? Yeah, and Tennessee in baseball can do that. But they can also strike fast, too, with the home runs. So that's the way I look at it. And I didn't kind of like you. I didn't know they could put together we're chipping away, chipping away, chipping away.
All right, we got to catch a break. And to be honest with you, I didn't throw anything. It was a checked throw. True, I didn't throw anything. I was angry, though, because technology kills me. Thanks to John Wilkerson again for putting up with what we had to do just to get him via phone. When we come back, let's talk about the game coming up tonight against North Carolina. We'll get a scouting report from Vince. And also, I want to talk about the pitching and defense. Is it good enough? Going back. Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by A.G. Hines Company. Nudura insulated concrete forms. They're being used the world over to build long-lasting, energy-efficient, cost-efficient homes and buildings, all kinds of structures. A.G. Hines Company, well, they carry them. And Gordon Hines, his kids, his team, they can all tell you all about them if you just get down there. Reach out this week if you have a building project on the horizon. A.G. Hines Company can help you do it right, including with Nudura insulated concrete forms. All right, we got a poll question for you today. We want to do that a little earlier than usual in the show, and the question is simple. Is UT now playing with house money in Omaha? Are they now playing with house money? After that, you've made it to Omaha, you've been number one this year, you've won the SEC, just on and on and on, the long list of accomplishments. You're there, now you've had a win for the ages. Is it, no matter what happens from here, it's a great year. That's question one, that's sample one, example one. Answer one, whatever the word is. There you go. The second option, got to make the finals. Got to make the final series. And the last one is, hey, it's a zero-sum game. A loss is a fail. So you tell us which way it is. Some of you have already voted, which I appreciate. I had a feeling it was going to be house money, but we'll see if we've got some people who say, I want to see some progress. We've never made the finals. I want to see the finals. Or maybe we got some of you who are out there who really do believe. Hey, you play to win the game. You either win or you lose. So you tell us, use your phone, get on the QR code, or go to sportsource.tv/polls and vote there. We appreciate you voting in our little contest. It gives me an idea of what the fan base is thinking. All right, Vince and Chuck.
Yes, sir.
What do fans need to know about North Carolina? Oh, this is more for Vince. We'll start with him. No offense, Chuck, but I think he knows more about the Tar Heels than you do. Certainly more than I do. Tell us about the Carolina Tar Heels very quickly.
Yeah, North Carolina can pitch. They're probably going to go with their number 2 and Chase Sprague in this game. Although he's been like Drew Beam, where the last 5 starts haven't been as sharp. 14 earned runs allowed in his last 5 starts. Beam has given up 20 in his last 5 starts, so they need a good performance from Drew Beam. But, man, they can really hit. They've had some offensive battles with Virginia, but they've played lower-scoring games in the NCAA tournament. They have a top 5 player in the country in Vance Honeycutt. This will be the best battle of leadoff hitters in Christian Moore against Vance Honeycutt, as you will find. And, probably a team that has as much end-of-game heroics as anyone.
Right.
They've had 4 wins in their last at-bats in the NCAA tournament alone. So it's both of these two teams are going to have belief all the way until it's all said and done.
I tell you what, we just talked about how there's no quit in this Tennessee team. That's North Carolina baseball to me too, and they've shown that. In Vance Honeycutt, Virginia let him beat them.
Yeah.
I mean, he had 2 hits. The Virginia outfielder spiked a throw that was coming into the infield.
Yeah.
The thing that I think North Carolina has an advantage on Tennessee is they play really sound, good defense.
Well, that was my question for you, actually.
Really?
Yes, you weren't supposed to ask the Carolina thing, but that's all right.
Okay.
It's good. You gave good answers. That's excellent. What I was going to ask you, though, and we talked about it a little last Sunday, and I'm keeping you out of it because you said they're fine. I don't think they are fine. I'm a little worried about this pitching, and now you throw in the defense. I mean, let's listen to it. They won yesterday, 12 runs. That's fantastic.
Right.
They also allowed 11 runs. 13 hits allowed. They walked 9. They hit 1 batter, and they had 3 errors in the field.
Yeah.
That's a tough way to win, and their pitching hasn't been great overall. It's not for the last week or so. It's you had a bad game against Evansville. So is their pitching and defense good enough to get them to the finals next week?
Depends on how good the hitting is, doesn't it? I mean, isn't that
the answer? Yeah, that gives you the answer.
They're going to have to outscore, just like I think Bob had said too. I think you've got to look at that. I'm looking at the infield defense, especially up the middle. A freshman at shortstop doesn't play like a freshman. Simo, you got so many of these guys are home run hitters. You don't necessarily expect them to be great defenders in a way. But I think their throws to first base have been a little bit wild. Yeah, I'm concerned. And then the pitching has been grooving pitches to me. It hadn't been getting on the black much. I mean, you had the pitcher the other day faced 5 batters without getting it out. So that has got to be a concern, especially to me, the infield defense, because you can't keep giving opponents extra outs.
It would be nice to see Tennessee have to win one of these things 3-2 and actually do it.
They've done it before this year, so that's really why I'm not super concerned.
Right.
But
you think we're screaming with our hair on fire, freaking out, and we shouldn't be, which is fine. Tell us that.
Yeah, I don't think you should be overreacting because this team has defended. Their numbers with North Carolina are very similar. We've seen them win games without home runs. We've seen them win games with terrific defense. We've seen their pitching, who's been top 5 in a lot of categories most of the year. I still think even though they use all their trusted arms in the pen to close out that first game, pretty much everybody is available for tonight. Maybe not Aaron Combs because he got to 60 pitches, but he will rely on those guys, and they probably have 3 other arms that they can go to if they need to, Loy, Phillips, and Garcia if they need to. So they have some pitching depth, maybe a little bit more than North Carolina. I've seen them pitch well this year, so I just think it's a little rough stretch.
There you go. So the Warriors, those of you, Chuck and I are your talisman. Those of you who are like, calm down, it's fine. Vince is your talisman. Very good.
And the walks, you gotta reduce them.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. When we come back, before the Vols left for Omaha, Tony Vitello got some things off his chest. We'll talk about what he had to say, why he said it. Could have been genius. Could be that he's wound a little too tight. Let's discuss that next. Come on back. Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Parkside Cabin Rentals. As heat domes descend across the South and East this week, there's still one place to go to cool down a bit: the Great Smoky Mountains. Those mountain breezes, the shade of those ancient trees, and the cool water of creeks and streams. Ah, it's idyllic, isn't it? You can go enjoy it. Go to ParksideCabinRentals.com, rent yourself a cabin in the Smokies. Escape the heat dome and get up there to Klingman's Dome. Get up to the Smokies and enjoy yourself. Nobody does a better job of taking care of you in terms of hospitality in the Smokies than the Ogle family. They've been doing it since the park first was called a park. Parkside Cabin Rentals. Get up there and see them this week. All right. Tennessee lost to Evansville last Saturday, and a reporter asked if Tennessee, the number 1 seed, if they lost to Evansville and failed to reach the World Series, would the season be viewed as a failure? After Tennessee won on Sunday, Tony Vitello went on a long kind of ramble, a screed, saying that Blake Burke didn't like that question. He gave the actual definition of the word success. He talked about patriotism. He told players that were looking for money not to waste his time. He got a lot of stuff off his chest. Naturally, fans loved it because if he'd stood out there and said, "Bring back feudalism," fans would go, "Feudalism!" But the question remains, it was kind of a bizarre thing. And the reason I thought it was bizarre is because every favorite in the history of sports has been handed that same question.
Yes.
We're Celtics fans. That has been the topic since October. If you don't win it, is it a failure? I'm just surprised that was a big deal. Now, probably genius because it shows how much he's got his players back. He tried to take a little of the pressure off them. Okay, smart. But I do wonder, you hear that this guy is aware of criticism. He knows when people are being critical. He makes a note of it. He's way too good a coach to get caught up in the Butch Jones paying attention to that kind of crap stuff. Was this a genius move, or is he wound just a little too tight?
I want to go with, can I Cavaliers? Or do I got to go one way or the other?
I wouldn't let Chuck, but I'll let you. Go ahead.
I'm going to go that it was both a genius move that has come about because he's wound a little bit too tight. And it kind of reminded me of some of the interactions that Nick Saban had with the media. I mean, he would get asked a question and he would pound on it and even come back a couple of days later and pound on it. I don't think anybody's going to question how good of a coach Nick Saban was. I don't think anybody can question how good of a coach Tony Vitello is. But I think he's a little bit, on one hand, he's a little bit of Bruce Pearl, the showmanship, and a little bit of Nick Saban with the, okay, I don't like the criticism. Now, the question, would it be a failure? No, it wouldn't be a failure. It would be disappointing. And though there's a big difference between failure
Well, let's let
and
the people at home
disappointment.
answer the poll question, Bob.
But maybe there's not
Let's
that
get
big
back.
of a difference between disappointment and failure. But I just think that it's a little bit of both. I think he is a little bit too tight, and he's too good of a coach to be.
He
that
doesn't
way.
need rabbit ears. I mean,
Yeah.
what's he care that? I mean, that is a standard question. That is not a bad
No.
question. I'm sure people here. Ask yourself this: if you're sitting there going, "That's a terrible question," have you ever complained that Rick Barnes lost in March and it ruined the season?
Yeah.
If so, you can't complain about that question because you've done it. Go ahead.
You know, look, I just thought he said virtually champion. He said everything but champions of life and saying champions of life. That's kind of what he said. It's about our process, is what makes us successful, our camaraderie, the teamwork. It isn't necessarily wins and losses. And he did also say we're playing with house money at this point. No, I agree with him. They're playing
Yeah.
with house money at this
Yeah.
point. This was supposed to be a
Yes.
rebuilding year. The
Yep.
fact that you're there, I agreed with everything that he said. I also thought it was contrived. I did. I thought that he was doing this to get his team
Performative,
fired
yeah.
up. And because you could tell the way that he kind of qualified the statement ahead of time by reading the definition of success and then saying, so by definition, we get a say in what success is. And then he goes into it, and I think that's where it got really awkward, is because I don't think it's something he truly believed in necessarily, because we all know that this is a results-based industry.
Yeah.
Everything's a results-based industry for the most part, and I think he just was having Blake Burks back.
He's a far better coach than Butch Jones. I'm not comparing him to Butch Jones. My concern, though, is if you've got a guy with rabbit ears who hears all this stuff, that derailed Butch. I mean, that was
Yes.
part of the reason he was paying it. He didn't like that people weren't giving him enough praise for, hey, we won 9 games. We don't care. It's like, you haven't won 9 games in 10 years. We don't care. And he freaked out over it. It started getting worse and worse. I don't think Vitello's going to do that. But I do wish you've got a guy over there in Rick Barnes who handles this with aplomb. Because, trust me, he's been asked it a lot. He's heard
Yes.
it on all these shows. This show, every show talks about, here we go, what's going to
He's got
happen in March.
20 years of practice of dealing with it.
I just wonder, I don't know that Rick Barnes would go to Tony Vitello and say, hey, buddy, young man, you're going to burn out worrying about that. Or if Tony Vitello would go to him and ask. But I just thought there's a real contrast there. Because Rick Barnes is a guy who you would think he's heard it enough that he would be the one that would flip out over it.
But I don't know if Rick Barnes went to him if he would listen, because I just think this is Tony Vitello's personality. I think, yeah, it was kind of contrived, but yeah, I also think he was irritated a little bit by it too. So I just think this is this guy's personality, and it works. Now, does it work for him for 20 years and he becomes one of the greatest baseball coaches
that's what I'm getting at.
in college history, or does at some point it just does, like you said,
Grinds
it
on
burns you out. You can't take it anymore, irregardless of money.
It shows what a great deodorant winning is, though, right? Because if you turn around and lose and you don't make the College World
Yeah.
Series after you said wins and losses aren't what makes our season a success, the fan base is livid with you.
Oh,
but
they
when you
lost it.
win,
Yeah.
then you did say champions alive to a lot of the fan base.
And they cheered
But
it.
when you win, that's passion, it's fiery, and we love the authenticity,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
Feudalism! All right. When we come back, how about a nice quick look at Rick Barnes' program? We just mentioned that. Let's get to basketball. We got more football coming up. Football coming up. Got more baseball coming up. I'm also going to tell you something cool out there. I'll show you a little bit of Peyton Manning, but I'm going to tell you something cool that Tennessee should be doing. Fans would love it, and UT would make cash off of it. That's coming up later. Come on back on the Sports Source. And welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Southeast Termite and Pest Control. Termites and carpenter bees, well, they tear up your home. Ants and mosquitoes, well, they bug you. They drive you crazy. Get rid of them. Get rid of all of them. You can protect your home, protect your family. Some of these things carry disease. Protect yourself by calling Southeast Termite and Pest Control. They do a great job. The Haynes family, and they are dedicated to doing things the right way. When you talk about family-owned business, they know what they're doing there. For 50 years, 50-plus years they've been doing it, and they are now the largest family-owned pest control company in all of East Tennessee. You see a lot of names out there. You might think, well, they were family-owned. Yeah, were. A lot of these are sold out. They're run by people somewhere else, not Southeast Termite and Pest Control. Local, family-owned. Get in touch with them this week. I use them. I love them. You will too. All right. Back with Will and Vince here. Talk a little bit of basketball. The SEC ACC Challenge was announced this week, and the Vols got on paper, it's not It's a good name, but it's not a great program is the way it looks, is Syracuse. They haven't made the NCAA tournament for 3 straight seasons, which is stunning. Of course, this will be the second year under their new coach since Jim Boeheim retired. But let's take a look at the overall list here. These are the games we know about. I don't think I left anyone out, but I may have. At Louisville this year, and Louisville's got a first-year head coach. So they're not what, again, name is better than the actual program. Syracuse, Miami, you're going to play them at Madison Square Garden. At Illinois, as part of a home-and-home from last year. They will face 2 out of 3, Baylor, St. John's, or Virginia in the Bahamas. So you could have 4 games against ACC teams. And then you got Florida, Kentucky, Vandy twice each in the SEC, and then you play the other 12 SEC teams once each. Will, overall thoughts on the schedule there? Again, if you just look at brand names, hey, that's what you want. I mean, Rick Barnes, he plays the name.
Yeah, big names, not great programs, though. A lot of programs that are in flux are just coming off of historically bad seasons. I think, look, that's hot garbage. If I'm just going to be completely honest with you.
That's hot garbage?
That's terrible. It's
oh,
terrible.
Come on. That's better than UNC Asheville.
I'd rather you play College of Charleston. I'd rather you play a lot of the other quality mid-majors than you're giving me a bunch of big names that haven't done anything and aren't going to do anything.
Well, part of it, he didn't schedule Syracuse. The ACC, SEC handed him that
That was
one.
part of it, is that's not great.
They signed a deal with Louisville.
The Louisville thing's smart because also you're going there the first year they rebuild, and then maybe year 2 they come here and you have a better chance. So I think the Louisville one can be good.
Illinois home and home, that's not bad.
Last year you played everybody. Last year, this past season,
Miami's
you played
a good program.
up and down, depending on how the NIL's going in Miami right now. I think that's as weak of a Rick Barnes non-conference slate as I have ever seen, because he usually does play everyone. Now, maybe part of it is the relationships he has, or because of all the flux with conference expansion. A lot of people say, I don't know how tough our conference is going to be. Let's duck out of this. You played everybody last year, and you play a bunch of bums this year. With big names.
Bunch of bums.
Big name bums.
If I'm buying
Jobbers.
season tickets.
That's what they are, Vince.
I'm buying season tickets to Tennessee. They play better named schools than anybody else, and sometimes they're up, sometimes they're down, but they are playing names. That beats the hell out of their football schedules.
It does, you're right.
Beats the living hell out of their football schedules.
Absolutely right.
All right, Vince, I got a question for you. Dalton Connect has been invited to attend the NBA draft in a couple of weeks. I've seen him picked anywhere from 8 to 12 in most mock drafts. There are only 3 guys, let's put up the full screen here, only 3 guys in Tennessee history have gone in the top 10, which is stunning. 1968, your highest draft pick ever. Man, that's a trivia question that you're going to win anytime. Tom Boerwinkle, the highest ranked or highest drafted Vol in history. Bernard King, number 7. Dale Ellis, number 9. And looking at this list, I would have forgotten where King and Ellis went, because in my mind, they are New York Knicks, Washington Bullets, and then Ellis was a Seattle Supersonic. Vince, my question, in a couple of weeks, will Dalton Connect be on that list and be the 4th top 10 pick in Vol history?
I believe so. In talking to draft analysts, several of them, that's where he comes up. The San Antonio Spurs, to me, would be the absolute best fit. They have 2 picks in the top 8, at 4 and number 8. He's had workouts with private workouts with the Trailblazers at 7, the Jazz at 10. Memphis has been mocked a lot.
Yeah, anybody that comes from Tennessee gets mocked to Memphis.
Yeah,
and they've gotten some of them too.
Yeah, that's just easy. But he's diverse on scheme. He had an outstanding NBA combine. To me, 7 to 10 is a sweet spot, but he's been anywhere from 5 to 12. I think I think he'll be a top 10 pick.
Good job, Vince. You win the segment. Will.
The Bob schedule for Tennessee. A bunch of bums.
All right. When we come back, we now have a good idea of when all the Vol football games will be. Were there any surprises when the start windows were released? Come on back on the Sports Source. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Madisonville Marine. Man, Hurricane deck boats, Skeeter bass boats, Suncatcher pontoons, aqua patios, Creval boats. I thought that was Crevalle, and I was corrected and told it was Creval. It's named after a fish. Bob, did you know it was a Creval and not a Crevalle?
I thought it was Creval, but when you said Crevalle, I thought, okay, that's just the way they pronounce that particular thing.
I looked at a pronunciation.
But a Jack Creval.
Yeah, but you can get a Creval at Madisonville Marine, and it's pronounced Madisonville Marine, not Marine. MadMarine.com if you want to know more. They do great stuff down there. As you just heard, I just named you some of the boats they carry. Their showroom goes on forever. They've got a huge parking lot outside with boats galore. Get down there and see for yourself. If you're sitting there thinking, I don't know if I want a deck boat or do I want a pontoon boat, get down there and talk to them. They can help you figure out which one's right for you and your family and will keep you happy. You don't want to get a boat and then wind up saying, I don't use it enough. That won't happen if you go to Madisonville Marine. There is no better place to buy a boat. All right, take a look here at the Vol start time. Oh, I'm sorry, I was supposed to remind people of the poll. Let's do that. There's your poll question, and it looks like the people who say zero sum, that's grown pretty small. That's pretty darn small. The group that Tony Vitello wouldn't like is a very small group.
Exactly.
In terms of guy to making the finals, got about 25% of it, but the vast majority of you think, yeah, they're already playing with house money. This has been a great season. We're good with it as is, which is impressive. I'm surprised, a little bit surprised that it's that high a number. But then again, we have rational fans that watch the show. All right, Vol start times. Let's take a look. There we go. Chattanooga, night game. NC State, night game. Kent State, why that's a night game, I don't know. But that's a night game. We knew those three already, but the SEC and ESPN announced this past week start windows, which is a new thing, which I like. It's the rare time when a network and a conference seem to be doing something for the fans.
Yeah.
Hey, now you can kind of plan your day if you're coming from West Tennessee or traveling.
Exactly.
You kind of got an idea if it's going to be afternoon or night. Chuck, any surprises on that list for you?
Well, one, I'm still trying to figure out if that's the first 7:45 kickoff for the Kent State game, and I guess there's been 7:45 games. Yeah. The one that jumps out to me is Mississippi State. Is that really going to fall in that 6 to 8 o'clock window? But other than that, I think it's kind of like where we've seen these games before, especially if you look at who else is playing.
Bob, we talked earlier. There was one thing that surprised you. I don't know if you remember.
Well, I just want to say right off the bat, I think this is hot garbage. My ode to Will.
Yes, there you go.
I cannot remember when we discussed.
You were surprised there were that many potential night games. You thought, boy, they think they're better than you think they're going to be.
You know, and I guess here's the way to look at it is that
I had to remind you of your negativity.
The 3:30 is probably that's the golden spot. It always was on CBS.
Yeah, I don't know that that's going to be the case.
And that's just it. But no, but I like at home. I love night games. I know it makes it tough for a lot of people. Heck, Chuck, back in the day, if me and you were covering a game, it would have made it hard on a deadline. But I love the night games over at Neyland Stadium. So yes, I now remember. It did surprise me.
that there was something like it. Let's pop it back up for a second if we can, and we may not be able to. But the one thing that stood out to me that I thought was going to be, I think it's telling, those last two games are just such trash. They're back at 1 o'clock and noon.
Hot garbage.
Hot garbage. I didn't want to say hot garbage again, but there you go. At Georgia, boy, if you lose to Georgia, and let's face it, most teams in the country who play them are going to lose to Georgia. So the odds are you're going to lose to Georgia. What a disappointing end to the season that you talk about humdrum. I mean, that's just going to cast a pall because there's nothing to get you excited again. Playing Georgia next to down there that deep in the schedule, and then you got crummy UTEP. If you get spanked by Georgia, there won't be 15 people at that UTEP game. I don't think.
Well,
then again, they are showing up for Akron.
Where are you at if you lose to Georgia?
Yeah.
If you lost to Georgia, but you still got a chance to go 10-2,
okay,
I think people will be there. But if Georgia's like loss number 4, then I think you can probably find good parking.
Yeah,
and maybe maybe UTEP will bring in this exciting offense that'll at least catch your attention a little bit.
But I agree with Chuck though. Right. The Mississippi State game was a surprise.
Right.
I just didn't see that as being a primetime game.
Maybe that'll get flexed out of there.
That had 1 o'clock written all over it.
But I just wonder if that's SEC Network night game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they got to have some over there that go head to head with the big good night games.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've got some duds on this schedule. And here's the term again. You've got some, Chattanooga's a useless game. Kent State's a useless game. So that's 2. Arkansas at Arkansas, Florida, Alabama, Kentucky, Mississippi State. You should beat Mississippi State, but we'll see.
Should.
UTEP, garbage. Vandy. So 1/3 of your schedule stinks. Chattanooga, Chattanooga, Kent State, UTEP, and Vanderbilt. That's just.
Yeah. I can handle the stinky Vanderbilt garbage, though.
I want them out of the league.
Just because they're an SEC team.
And it happens that way
almost. Terrible. Get rid of them.
Yeah, that's the way it is.
Punt them. Get rid of them. It's another reason the SEC needs to go to a 9-game schedule, so you're not stuck with 8, and your only permanent rival is Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
They do not belong in this conference. They should be punted. Get rid of them and bring in Duke from the ACC.
I was just thinking
Duke's a better program than Vanderbilt.
Oh, by far.
Okay. When we come back, The Athletic says there's more on the line for Tennessee than Oklahoma when those two teams meet in September. Do we all agree with that? There's more on the line for the Vols than the Sooners. Come on back, we'll discuss. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Daniel Hood Roofing. Do you need a new roof? Or would a rejuvenated roof do the trick for you? A roof rejuvenation can add a decade to your existing roof, I should say. Visit danielhoodroofing.com to learn more about what Daniel and his team offer and to line up a free inspection ASAP. Daniel Hood Roofing. All right, let's take a look at the poll results. I think that's about right. So only 3% of you out there would get a stern lecture and a rant from Tony Vitello with your zero sum, a loss is an F. Got to make the finals, 25%, and 3/4 of you basically saying, yes, it's a great season already, and that's where I would have cast my vote as well. I'm guessing everyone here would cast it that way?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would be nice, obviously, to win the whole darn thing or to at least make the finals. That would be a new step, but it's been an insane year. So.
I think you're playing with house money after you start 2-0.
Yeah, avoiding the 0-2 in Omaha gets some people off your
Right.
Yeah. All right. The Athletic this week talked about some of the biggest SEC games of the year, and they put Tennessee's trip to Oklahoma in that category. But check this out. Take a look at this graphic. What they said was, the Sooners' welcome to the SEC game comes against the Vols, and the loser of this one will start to worry about its status in the conference. And then the next part of that is, which team has more on the line? Tennessee. If the Vols lose, questions will come up about how far behind they may have fallen in the SEC. Oklahoma's still in the conference newcomer, and they have more prove-it games down the line in a loaded SEC schedule. Okay. Agree? Disagree?
Disagree. I think it was written by an Oklahoma graduate. I don't think David Ubben wrote that, did he? I mean, can you imagine? It means more to Tennessee than it does to you lose an SEC home game.
Your first SEC game ever against your former quarterback.
Exactly, against Josh Heupel. I mean, I wouldn't even let that go to print.
I'll go ahead and agree with it. I would let it go to print, and I will endorse it. And here's the reason: Tennessee's got more on the line going into this game than Oklahoma does. Some people,
they're both preseason top 15.
Do not think that Oklahoma is a very good football team, and Tennessee should go in there and win. And I think a lot of people, you see them preseason, a lot of people have them dancing right around the level of the getting into the Final Four, getting into the postseason.
12.
Okay, if you lose this game, I think that does knock you back a little bit. I think it does hurt you. And I think then Oklahoma goes, when we're ranking the SEC, Oklahoma goes up here. So I think Tennessee does have a lot on the line.
I agree with
game.
Bob, because it could be the difference in you being in the playoff conversation, not being in the playoff conversation. For Oklahoma, you win that game, you probably go 8-4. You lose that game, you're going 7-5. I mean, like
the preseason rankings have them both just right together.
Vegas says 7-5, 9.5. Like that's because voters don't know what they're doing, and so aren't looking at the roster as a whole. They're looking at skill position players only. But they have literally 2 offensive linemen that have started a college football game. That's rough, right? So, and they have a really tough schedule down the stretch. Mm-hmm. I think for Tennessee, it could be the difference in 10-2 or even 11-1. And Tennessee being 9-3 this year if they lose that game.
Yeah, I agree with the answer of Tennessee. I disagree with what they said about both teams. Like, I don't think this is a big landscape or you're going to lose your spot or any of this kind of questioning Tennessee's future.
Yes, that's my take.
I think it's way too dramatic. It's what Will said. It's the Oklahoma game is the difference between college football playoff or not, potentially, if the rest of the schedule goes chalk. Plus, Oklahoma has the most difficult schedule. John, you had the graphic with the opponent win totals. So they're going to have challenge after challenge after challenge. They're going to get a pass for the first game entering into the SEC. So I do think Tennessee has more on the line, but I just don't agree with the reason.
And see, Tennessee's going in that game. We've seen the early line is a 5.5-point dog, right? You're the underdog.
That big? Wow.
Yes. I mean, that's what I saw, right?
5.5 is where it opens.
So, I mean, to me, you're doing – I just see how if you're going into that game – I don't think you can say that it means more. It means a lot to both teams.
It means a lot. I agree with that. It means a lot to both teams. But I think if you go into that game and lose, Oklahoma is not Lincoln Riley's Oklahoma. Everybody has them kind of down here. You go in there and lose, okay.
That's it. So they don't. We keep saying everybody has them down here. Will has them down here. They're actually.
Well, that's who I call when I need information.
I mean, all the rankings have Oklahoma and Tennessee right there together. So it just depends. All right, so if Tennessee's ranked number 1, do we then come back and say, voters don't know what they're doing. We can't pay attention to the rankings. Or do we just say that when we don't like what they say?
If Vegas has you at 7.5 and a poll has you at wins and the poll has you at 8th overall in the nation,
I get it.
Somebody's wrong there, and it's probably not the people in Vegas.
My issue with it was it made it sound like this is some sort of program-defining moment for
exactly.
either of these programs. I thought that was
I think it's big for the season.
big for the season. Okay, I just don't agree with. They will start to worry about its status in the conference. Do you mean for this season or you mean going forward?
There is no referendum.
If the Vols lose, questions will come about how far they may have fallen.
They haven't fallen. How has Tennessee played on the road in the SEC?
Fallen.
No,
They were in the Orange Bowl 2 years ago.
I disagree with that part of it. It'll be how much has Tennessee just stayed where they are and are going to continue to be mediocre.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just see it as if Oklahoma loses, you tell me that losing to Josh Heupel is not like
it's a big game. I just thought it was overplayed here.
Oh, I do too.
I think Tennessee has a better shot at the playoffs. I don't think they make the playoffs. So if anybody here is sitting here going, "Oh well, they'll make the play," I don't see it. Sorry, I don't see it. So losing to Oklahoma to me isn't going to be the difference between making the playoffs and not. I think you're going to wind up with 4 losses this year.
Yeah, and if Oklahoma ends up being pretty good, they have more opportunity. Even if they lose that game in Tennessee, they have plenty of other games to where they can make an impression in the league.
Yeah. You don't. You've got a crap schedule,
including Texas.
A couple of weeks after that. That will be the most important.
Right. There you go. That's the reason it's bigger for Tennessee.
It's the road underdog.
Hot garbage. All right. When we come back, the conference is looking to sell their names to the highest bidder. How do you like the All-State 12 Conference? Brilliant or horrible? Come on back. Man, this is a weird show. The stuff we talk about in between breaks. All right, welcome back. This segment brought to you by Safety Systems. Home automation, security systems, fire and life safety systems. They do it all. What you need to do is you're going to need to check out safetysystems.com. You will see everything they do, and it's listed out for you. And let me tell you, they can help your home. They can help your business, whether that's your office or your home. Security, the safety systems. Also, they still do a lot of the communication stuff and set up that way. Really, really good company. You'll see 2 of their signs in the front yard and backyard of my house. Well, you shouldn't be in my backyard. But if you're in the front yard, you will see that sign right there for Safety Systems because I believe in these guys. I use them. All right. It was reported this week that the Big 12 and several Group of 5 conferences are looking at selling the naming rights for their entire leagues in exchange for huge dollars, big, massive dollars. It's believed the Big 12 could soon be called the All-State 12. Is this a brilliant way to make bucks, or is it just a horrible idea?
I'm going to go with it's a brilliant way to make dollars. I think it's a horrible idea. That's a brilliant way to make dollars.
Well, I'll tell you what.
I'm disappointed. I didn't ever think of it. It's brilliant.
It's going to be logos on jerseys.
Right.
Advertising on the field, heck, you might as well go ahead.
Well, I've already said Allstate now 3 times in this show because they're talking about becoming that. Well, it's brilliant.
If you're the Big 12 and you're so far behind the other conferences, right? Yes. You got to figure out a way to catch up somehow. And if this is the way, then I don't like it.
But it beats private equity. It beats taking money from private equity.
And that's one thing I wrote down.
Venerable old school programs have already left the Big 12, so why not the Big 12? You can't do that in the SEC right now. Now, could you be the SEC presented by Coca-Cola?
The Dr. Pepper SEC.
What if you were the SEC?
Duke's Mayo SEC.
You could be that.
What if you were the SEC presented by the Securities and Exchange Commission?
I just think the Big 12 can do that. The ACC could probably still do that. I don't know that the Big 10 and the SEC could.
There are 2 that can't. It's the SEC and Big 10.
Right, and they'll probably try and bring it in with basketball first.
But the thing is,
on the uniforms, maybe they already had some extent.
But I mean, here's the thing: if you just call it the All-State Conference, what I don't understand, it makes sense to me because Big 12 means nothing. Means nothing.
Yeah, I agree.
As Will said, 5 of the teams that were in the Big 12 when it formed back in '96, way back in the '90s, that league came together. 5 of those teams are already gone. 1 to the Big 10, 4 to the SEC. So it doesn't matter on that front. The one thing I find funny is they're talking about calling it the All-State 12. Why aren't you calling it the All-State 16? It's 16 teams. Why save the 12? Just make it the All-State 16.
If you don't, it's part of they want to keep that part of the branding, like the 12.
You don't need it.
Then call it the All-State Big 12. So you keep your branding. Now, I agree with you.
Branding,
They're holding
you're
on.
dropping Big 12 already. Okay.
Right, but then you're just adding a sponsor. I'm saying if the 12 is important, you're part of your branding, keep the whole thing, not just the number that doesn't represent the teams
Well, and that's
in
just
your
it.
conference.
I don't think it is important. I don't think that brand means much anymore. To me, I would be looking at the All-State 16, just rename the whole thing and make it make sense. If you're thinking toward the future, I'd rather be known as that than some mishmash with the old stuff.
And then,
I just
like
don't think
in
it matters.
typed it so hard, it's so tiny, you can hardly formally known as the Big 12.
I was going to ask though, could you? What would it be? Dr. Pepper, Duke's Mayo, they're tied with the SEC regions, the regions SEC. But Vince down here, I think, nailed it with the Waffle House SEC. That would be the perfect brand for the SEC.
I think it has to be a Southern brand that's large enough to make it worth your while. There are only two that I can think of, Coca-Cola and Delta Airlines.
But they're already in with, Delta makes sense. Delta would be good. It's funny they're not an SEC partner already. Coke isn't because Dr. Pepper is.
We're still doing stupid things in Birmingham for some reason instead of moving the SEC headquarters to a city that makes sense.
New Orleans. Move it all to New Orleans. Put the championship games in New Orleans. Give me a reason to go to New Orleans. All right. Very good. When we come back, you're going to hear from Peyton Manning, and then I'm going to tell you a moneymaker of an idea for Danny White that fans would be happy to hand cash over for. I really think so. I'll explain that next. Come on back. Welcome back. This segment brought to you by Games and Things. When Games and Things talks about life being fun, what do they mean? Well, could be air hockey, could be table tennis, foosball, could be arcade games. They've got those. Darts, pool tables, shuffleboards, jukeboxes, card tables. We could go on and on and on for the rest of the show because Games and Things carries everything that could make your home into the funnest home in your neighborhood. Now, that could be the drawback. Everyone wants to come over to your house. Maybe you don't want them there. Games and Things, because life should be fun. Check them out at the corner of Kingston Pike and Lovell Road. The showroom itself is a fantastic place to visit.
You guys have become friends here. When did that start to happen?
Well, obviously playing against them so many years, felt like we met at a Pro Bowl, got to know each other at a couple off-season golf tournaments, and we just had tremendous respect for each other. I was so impressed with Tom's commitment to be better every season than he was the year before. Always looking for some type of edge in his training, in his film study. And we actually got together one off season in 2009 at the height of our careers. Tom's coming off an MVP season. I'm coming off an MVP season. We met in a small town in Tennessee. I said, Tom, let's get together. Let's kind of go real under the radar. Don't tell anybody we're coming in. Tom flies in on Mr. Kraft's plane, big, huge plane. I'm like, that is not what I said. I said under the radar. That's against the salary cap too, by the way. We won't get into that. But we played golf together. We lifted weights together. We threw routes together with these high school receivers. We took their phones away, and we said, if you tell anybody that Tom Brady and I are working out together and that we're friends, we're going to kill all of you. So, but it was fascinating to see his work ethic, and we really picked each other's brains, not giving away all of our secrets, but we were kind of challenging each other to get better. It was a fascinating 2 days for me. It really was. And then, of course, a couple of years ago, I was fortunate to get inducted into the Hall of Fame. Tom Brady left training camp to come to see my induction, and I'm honored to be here tonight, and I promise I'll be there in a couple of years when he is there in Canton as well.
Great surprise guest. Ladies and gentlemen, a hand in Foxborough for Peyton Manning.
All right, that was Peyton Manning this week at Tom Brady's Hall of Fame induction into the Patriots Hall of Fame. I'm not going to talk to you about Patriots, don't worry. This ties back to Tennessee. But I have to go through one to explain the second. I was up there for that thing, and it was the best, it wasn't a sporting event, but it was the best sporting event I've ever attended. It was 60,000 fans on hand in Gillette Stadium. Whole stadium's open up. There's no chance of losing a game. They brought back hundreds of former Patriots and coaches. They showed highlight after highlight. It was an opportunity that you never get because guys retire, guys get traded, guys sign free agent deals. We had an opportunity to cheer an offensive line coach who was there for 40 years, in Dante Scarnecchia. And I'm sitting there, again, bear with me. I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, no fan gets to enjoy this. 3 hours of just nostalgia and joy. It was a night of grown men crying on the stage and all around that stadium. And there were plenty of women crying too. But the trick was, though, I'm sitting there thinking, man, am I lucky to be enjoying this? All fans should get to do this. And then it dawned on me, Danny White likes money. Danny White's looking for new revenue streams. This was like a home football game in the middle of June for the New England Patriots. Now, they went all out in doing this whole show. So there's cost involved. And you had to open up concession stands and security and parking, and you have to have people to do all that stuff. But I'm sitting there thinking, if Danny White and UT decided one summer night, and you're praying for good weather, which they got in New England, but if they decided we're going to open up Neyland Stadium, and it's going to be 3/4 open, and we're going to sell tickets, and we're going to bring back all the greats we can. When did you ever get a chance to thank David Cutcliffe for what he did? I'm not talking about the 85 team going to the Tennessee Theater. I'm talking 50, 60,000 Vol fans cheering those guys in the arena where we all watched it and saw it happen. And the way they did it in New England was you would have one player come up, he gets a round of applause, he then introduces a panel on stage. Here's Gronk, here's Welker, here's Edelman with Brady. You're cheering all of them. Then it goes to another guy, there's highlights. Imagine if you've got Willie Gault and Tim Irwin down there. Round of applause, and they say, and boy, we're just glad we were able to set the table for this bunch, the 85 Vols. And you have Dale Jones and Darrell Dickey and Jeff Powell walk out there. I think Vol fans would eat that up right up through the 98, and you get a chance to thank Chavis and Cutcliffe, guys who you didn't stop a game and say, hey, everybody, how about an ovation for all these guys who've done it? You didn't get it.
Right.
I just thought, this is something that I bet other teams are going to start doing. It doesn't have to be just someone's retirement. There's a lot involved in it, but it's like a home game in the middle of the summer. We'll see if they do it or not, but to me, that kind of a thing, I wish all of you guys could do something like that with your teams. And growing up around here, I just thought, man, Vol fans would go crazy for something like that. Thoughts?
Yeah. I think it's a great idea. With the construction at Neyland Stadium.
Well, I'm not talking about this year. I'm talking about down the road.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was going to say is it wouldn't be a short-term thing. It'd be like once they finish all the stages at Neyland Stadium.
This couldn't be thrown together quickly.
No, were they planning this for a year or more? It was a year in planning.
Well, even next year. I mean, if there's more stages. But the concept of it, the way Tennessee reflects back on its history so well, so many stars, I do think it would be an absolute smash hit.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
I think that you would probably, we'd need something else to happen or some, like, I don't know what it is. I think 98, people have been hanging their hat on 98 around here for a really long time. So I think if you tried to open up Neyland Stadium and do 98, I don't think that's going to happen.
I think it's got to be 98 and 85 and every champion.
All of it together, do it as one. Maybe that would be the thing. Or
and you tell people this raises money for NIL.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the other thing, too. They had Peyton Manning walk across the stage in Boston. Steve Spurrier walking across the stage in Knoxville.
Yes, to talk about some of the
sort
toughest.
of thing.
Yes.
So it wouldn't just be Tennessee guys. I mean, Nick Saban come and talk about what happened 2 years ago. That sort of thing. I think it would be interesting.
Well, here's the deal. You've got statues of all these guys. Do they have one of Manning? They don't have a Manning statue, do they?
That I'm aware of.
Make a 16-foot tall Manning statue.
That'd just be his forehead.
Put it out there. Invite everybody back for Manning night. And the trick is, at Manning night, you talk about all these other guys.
All the other things.
That's what they did here. This was a Brady induction, but it was really just a chance to close the book on 20 great years. But even, I mean, they brought out all of the Patriots Hall of Famers. I mean, former Vol, the reason I'm a Patriots fan, Stanley Morgan was there up on stage with Tom Brady at the end. I just think that Tennessee fans would really go for that, bringing back all these old guys for a chance to say, I mean, where have you ever seen Eric Berry, Peyton Manning, Al Wilson together on one stage in Neyland Stadium with a chance to say thank you? Philip Fulmer, Cutcliffe, and Chavis back together on the, I mean, I just think there's something to that.
Yeah, sometimes they'll bring them out, but it's like during a timeout or
Yeah.
a little
That's
halftime thing.
different,
But this
yeah.
would be
They don't get
much
to
more
speak.
detail.
Yeah.
Was there any fan interaction there? The different elements,
Just the chants that went on and on. But no, they didn't bring fans.
like autographs or anything? Kind of stuff?
No, but that's something you could do. And again, they charged regular season tickets. I think you'd also have fans that would say, oh, I'm going to get to see all this and I'm helping out NIL for once. Okay, I'll do that too. I may be wrong, but to me, as I sat there experiencing this and I watched everybody around me just freaking out the same way I was, it was the culmination of an entire lifetime of fandom. And Tennessee fans are so passionate, I would imagine they would love that, something like that, where you bring some Vol football reunion for the ages, jumbotrons filled with all these history, and you just go decade by decade. Just a thought. But anyway, we'll see if Danny White takes it and runs with it, and probably not. When we come back, the Vols face North Carolina tonight, but will they still be playing when we come to you next Sunday morning? Come on back on the Sports Source. Welcome back. This segment of our show brought to you by Hearthside Bank. From southeastern Kentucky, where I grew up, right down to Farragut here in Knoxville. Hearthside Bank is always within reach. A bank where the word neighbor actually means something. Do me a favor, folks. Visit hearthsidebank.com or stop by one of their branches. They can help you with personal banking, business banking, financial planning, home mortgages, and much, much, much more. Hearthside Bank, it's kind of the perfect name. When you go into one, it feels homey, it feels neighborly, it feels like a community, it feels friendly. And I don't know that you get that with a lot of banks. You hear that a lot. I don't know that I've ever felt it, except walking in with Hearthside Bank. Check them out this week, hearthsidebank.com. All right, Vols will be facing North Carolina tonight at 7 o'clock. Still in the winner's bracket. Now, it's hard to make a bracket in a double elimination tournament, but the gist is Florida State and Virginia are going to play at 2 o'clock. The loser of that game is out. Then, tonight at 7, North Carolina and Tennessee, the winner remains unbeaten. Game 9, which will be Tuesday at 2 p.m., that will be the Florida State-Virginia winner against the North Carolina-Tennessee loser. So if Tennessee loses today, they'll play the winner of Florida State-Virginia at 2 o'clock Tuesday. If Tennessee wins today and they're undefeated, they're going to Game 11. They don't play till Wednesday at 2 o'clock, and they would await the winner of whoever's coming out of that, Florida State-Virginia winner, North Carolina loser against Tennessee. And then if Tennessee is there and they haven't lost, they would have to lose 2 more times. I know that sounds confusing, but that's the best we can do. And then if they get that, they're in the final series against Florida, Kentucky, NC State, or Texas A&M, one of those teams coming out of the other side. All right, all that to say, do they make it to the final series, which will be played next Saturday, Sunday, and Monday if needed? And Vince, the Game 2 next Sunday, going to be on WATE, right?
Yep,
ABC?
2 p.m., yep.
There you go.
Very cool.
Will we be leading into a Tennessee game next week?
I think so. I really do. And a lot of it is everyone else, low-scoring game, low-scoring game, low-scoring game. Tennessee just is better. The bats are better. Everyone's pitching's kind of flawed right now. I'll take Tennessee to be there.
About 30 seconds, Bob.
Their pitching worries me. Their defense worries me. I know Vince talks about how good the pitching's been all season, but it hadn't been that great in the postseason. So that's what worries me. But I'm always negative, so I'll say yes. We will be sitting here next week getting ready.
I like their hitting. I like their stick-to-itiveness,
Right.
as Majors would say. Pitching worries me. The other thing that worries me, and it's about predicting any of these teams to go through, the first 4 games, they're all one-run games.
Right.
These are evenly matched teams. People
Right.
talked about this being one of the strongest, most evenly matched fields ever, and it looks that way. That said, if I'm saying it's coin flippable, I'll flip the coin and say it goes Tennessee's way. So I think we're talking about them next Sunday.
Keep the bats hot. I mean, you're going, like Bob was kind of saying, I think you're going to have to out-hit a lot of these teams. I would love to see a final Tennessee and Kentucky. I think that would be awesome.
15 seconds.
I'll say yes. Game 2 next Sunday. We'll be going into Game 2. I think Tennessee will be there. They've adjusted the ballpark pretty well. I think they'll clean up the pitching and defense.
Would have been classic if you were the guy that said, no, they won't make it. All right.
Classic fruit.
Vince, Chuck, Bob, Will, and thanks again to John Wilkerson for joining us and for our crew for trying to get all that lined up. I appreciate it. Appreciate you. Appreciate our sponsors. Go out and see them. We'll see you right back here next Sunday. Thanks.